Hello and welcome back to the KC Dota channel. It's been a hot damn minute since I last said that, but we're back with new fresh content around Bali Major, which is a particularly important event for me. So watch this video, it's dope, and keep an eye out because KC stocks be rising. I'm joined by the one and only legend johnxfire. How you doing today, my main man?
Doing great. We are tying up the DPC for Div 2 and we're into Bali. So I'm keen to see what these teams do and what this tier list is going to be like.
All right. We're gonna keep it, not too PMA, not too spicy. So, but let's get away into the main one right away, just to knock things straight off the bat. In God Gamers, I have one and only one team. It makes the pun. It's perfect. 4 tier 1 tournaments in a row. Gaimin Gladiators. Say you disagree, John.
No, there's no disagreeing. There's no way you disagree with Gaimin Gladiators at the top. A lot of people actually, when I posted my pick'ems, doubted me. I'm like, dude, it's Gaimin Gladiators. They're still gonna win. And guess what? They won Dream League. So, it's like whatever, you guys. They're probably still the front runners coming into Bali. That's just how it is.
Listen, I understand that hater bug real well. I was one of those haters being like, okay, they want Lima, okay, great. They want the next one on a new patch. I was like, okay, that's good, but how good is it? They came into this one, I was like, they won Berlin, and then in Dream League, I was like, okay, you know what? It's a non-DPC thing. They look like they're taking it a bit easier. Next thing you know, they pulled through all the tough spots they were in and they won it anyway. So that's Gaimin Gladiators. We don't have to go too hard on them. Everybody understands how good this team is. But a more controversial pick, right? We have Team Aster. I'm not really sure where to put them. I wouldn't put them in a solid contenders category. I'd put them at good-ish because although they can look really good at times, in those same games, they can still find ways to lose. So for me, this team is only goodish, even with Emperor Zumail there.
Yeah, for sure. Some might argue dark horse, right? Depending on where you weight them. But I'd say goodish is a good spot. They've proven that they've got some strengths. Sometimes when they look really lost, man, it looks like just spamming chat wheel. It's not enough to communicate. So there are certain things that multilingual teams have to deal with. And this is the first time we've seen this kind of multilingual blend with China. They've had a lot of time to blend in, but how far it goes by Bali, who knows? I feel like it's a little bit lost sometimes, for sure.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I feel like we giving them a lot of goodwill, putting them in good-ish though, because again, when they look great, they look like they can beat any team in the world, and in that very same game, they can still find ways to throw it. Now, on the topic of throwing, who should we go to next? Okay, no, let's keep it PMA still. I'm gonna go for Evil Geniuses next year. I have them as solid contenders because I feel like they play super aggressive, super fast. In every single series I watch them, they never look like they're outclassed. And in some lot of games, they look like they completely outclass their opponents. So for me, they're a solid contender. I don't know where you're sitting with that.
Mm, it's debatable between goodish and solid contenders. I think EG can be either or. Their showing recently was so. I'm not sure. I have a hard time gauging with EG and with Beastcoast right now. I think they bump around between solid contenders and dark and goodish. So it's like in the middle of the pack. Maybe solid contenders is solid enough for them, but on a bad day they can look pretty dark horse-ish. So I don't know, like that's a decent spot. It's in the middle of the ground.
Okay, so on that topic, then I'm gonna put Beast Coast at. I feel like they are the very definition of this good-ish tier because they're always like in the mix. They're sitting at 4-4, having to play tiebreakers. No matter how rubbish they look on day one, by the time the end of the group comes around, they're still in contention. They're pushing through, like they're making moves, making picks and stuff, like to progress, and they could be on the cusp of greatness. But that's the position in almost every event, right? So I think for me, they're the definition of good-ish.
I would argue dark horse for this tournament. I think they're still adjusting with Parker, right? Like I mean, they replace Hector. I think that's a big one for me.
Yes,
Just
for sure.
replacing K1 is a pretty big middle of the pack kind of thing for me. Yeah, I'm not sure how well they'll blend with Parker. They're showing in Dream League was not ideal. So I would say Dark Horse would be a little bit better, but who knows? Maybe Hector was dragging them down. That's maybe the
Ooh.
reason they did that, but I wouldn't say so. I thought Hector was a pretty solid dude.
Yeah, I mean,
So yeah.
who's not a fan of K1 Hector? He invented the mana avoiding neutral creep, so always a fan there.
Mhm.
Sad to see him go, and I'll agree with you. We'll knock Beastcoast down, but they have to prove themselves again before they get that full on, you know, good status. Let's just say.
Yep.
The next team I think we could put in the dark horse contender list, and this could be my bias. I could be a fanboy, right? Is Azure Ray. Obviously, they just came together very recently. It's only been one tour in the DPC, but they made it to the major somehow, John X. And yes, Group B is super tough, but I feel like, you got Somnus, you got FY. On the right day, you never know what this team could do, what damage they could do at the major. What you think?
Yeah, I think that's a fair spot. Like, I feel like their showing in the DPC was a little bit more of a mixed bag, but there's a lot of potential. We just don't know if they can tap into that potential. So Dark Horse is a pretty good spot. Some would argue the players are washed. I don't think they're washed. I think they're just waiting to wake up. So we'll see if Bali is going to be the point for them to launch, and definitely a Dark Horse for sure.
Okay, on the topic of wash, right? I'm gonna let you decide like the placement straight up. You lead this one because I'm very biased. Team Liquid, where you putting them?
Mm. If you just judge from Dream League, it looked really bad. But I think Liquid's the kind of team to bounce back after. I'd say they would be in Dark Horse territory, mainly because I don't doubt them. I think they are a little bit of a Dark Horse coming in. There's a question mark as to their performance, but I feel like Blitz and the boys should be able to rally after a pretty disappointing Dream League. So should be a good cornerstone. Should be, like one of those anime experiences where the protagonist gets beaten down in the smaller fight and rallies in the bigger fight. This could be that bigger boss fight for Liquid to step up to.
Okay, I like that. I like that dark horse. Let's put them right at the top of the dark horse, not just because they have a horse in their logo, but
Mm,
because they do have the potential, right? They made like second place in three major events, the ones that Gaming Gladiators have been winning.
mhm.
Everybody's hyping them up and such, but again, it was a really bad showing in Dream League. I feel like there's a lot of repeated ideas and stuff coming out of them. So they could be great, but for now we leaving them with the last impression they left us. So we'll leave them there. Okay, I like that. I like that. That's cool.
Yep.
Another team that I'm also biased about and I don't know where to place. Nine Pandas, obviously at Berlin, came out of nowhere, wrecked people, really a whole new brand of Dota where everybody was trying to play so fast. They just controlled the game at their own pace. Every single match, four players doing everything. Ramsey's just farming. But I feel like this team is a typical Ramsey's team. There's moments where it's great, and there's moments where it's like, why are you putting me through this? As a fan, it's very
Yeah.
difficult to judge this team.
Yeah, I'd say
Do they make
they'd
solid
had
contenders?
it's hard to say. If I had to choose between putting one Eastern Europe team onto solid contenders, I'd rather put Betboom. So I'd put them in goodish. I think on a really good day they could take it all, but they're cursed with a classic Eastern European cursive. Uh Not throwing, but
Just say it, man. Fucking take that basketball
they
and
they
shoot
they
it.
throw. They throw, they throw sometimes. It's like I don't know what's happening. It looks like they tilt. It looks like they're done with the game. They GG out in 18 minutes. And that can happen to Nine Pandas. So they're goodish. On their best day, they're a solid contender. On their worst days, well, they're Lord help me. So it's like goodish is a good compromise.
All right, nice, nice. I like that. That's spicy. Yeah, I feel like honestly, you could see that trajectory of a Ramsey's team where it looks so good. You're really thinking, this team is on a precipice of greatness, and then they're gonna have one loss to Beastcoast where they're like 30k net worth up, and Ramsey's gonna throw his keyboard out of the window, and
Yep.
everybody's gonna tilt. So we'll actually be humble and leave them in goodish. That's fine.
Yep.
From our region, johnxfire, Blacklist, International. Where are we putting this team?
Hmm. Blacklist. It- I want to say goodish, but I think they're more of a dark horse. I'm not sure how their performance on land will be. Theoretically, this team has a lot of land experience, so they should be pretty much on goodish, but it's been a while since any of these players have been on land. It's been a solid year for most of them. So I'd put them in dark horse just because they are the definition of dark horse. They're not good enough for me to say goodish. I think they kind of skated by the DPC on on the edge of some results where Talon drew a couple of games. So I would say dark horse. If I can dictate next, I feel like the rest of Southeast Asia would be Either Dark Horse or Lord Help Me. And you know what? Execration's gonna go to Lord Help Me. I
For
love
sure.
those boys.
For sure.
I love those boys. They're all friends. If we were in Bali, we'd probably go karaoke every night. But they are in the Lord Help Me category just because Lord Help Me, their games are really, they don't look good. They don't look good when they come in. Let me tell you, their wins don't look good. And that's one thing, right? Like there are games where you win and you're like, wow, that's a hard fought game. There are games where you're like, wow, you should not have won that. And that's not the kind of wins you want, where you could say, like, okay, we won that, but we shouldn't have won it. And I think Execration's had a lot of wins like that. So hopefully they've taken the time to practice and, even though they were not the Dream League, take the opportunity to scrim around at the very least. Same with Bleed. They're definitely in the Lord Help Me category. I think there's some games where Bleed looks really lost. I feel like it's a lot better in this DPC tour. I think Misery's reeled in some of their more wild factors here for Southeast Asia, but I want to say Bleed is along there with Execration to help me.
Okay, so I
Lord
want
help
to
me,
make a
because
counter
it's,
argument here, right?
yeah.
We were in the DPC. We worked with Winter. He was flame god every time. Just not even the
Yes.
name coding came up. Just he heard the sound of K. Tables were flipping, mouses were
Yep.
being thrown
Yep.
across the room, and there was many times the play kind of backed up Winter's opinions, right? But
Mhm.
if you look at that team, player for player, coding aside, right, that is like an all-star C team. This is like the big names of big names. And I feel like they really have that X factor where if Corden can put it together, if he can go toe to toe with these, top tier mids around the world, they could do something special. So I'm not gonna say they're a goodish team, but I would argue they can fit the dark horse category.
I don't know. There's something lacking in the team flow. Like, we see individual performances from Ice and DJ shine, but then we see some flat performances from Jackie as well. Not terrible, but not to the point where you say he's one of the best carries in the world. I don't think that's something you can easily say. So as a whole, I think Bleed, again, Div 1 of DPC this tour for Southeast Asia was just weird. So it's hard to judge. I personally still have them in Lord Help Me, just because I think if Corden gets crushed and the side lanes collapse, which I can see happening up against a lot of teams, then I don't know where Bleed goes. So I would still say Lord Help Me. I can understand the Dark Horse argument. I would be biased into putting them lower myself.
Yo, I can't believe you're making me do this. You're putting Dubu,
Yes.
Ice, DJ alone
Yes.
could be solid contender, but fine, John X. Out of respect for you, we'll put
Yes.
them there. No stress.
Yes.
Okay, now this bias again. Everybody's saying China is a washed region.
Mhm.
Days are numbered. All that kind of stuff. It lasted for like half a year. China's back. IG put up solid performance in Chinese DPC. I feel like there's a lot of time where, again, similar to Bleed, where CDPC looks super clowny. I mean, Thailand didn't even qualify for the major, which maybe we'll get to at the
Mm.
end of this video, right? But C versus C, you can't really judge because it just you can't have two wild cards in a team. You can't have two teams wanting to play Nagasire and Terabit Rising the whole time. But
Mhm.
the Chinese Dota sort of method of playing together, Team Dota, it always sort of translates to LAN well. And at the end of the year, that's usually when Chinese teams ramp up. So I want to say IG is gonna. I mean, we don't have enough data to say they're goodish against
Mhm.
international competition, but I would at least put them like quite a high on the dark horse
Yeah.
standing at least. And I think their group is also much easier.
I'd agree. I'd agree. I think a dark horse placement for IG is good. There's potential for them to do good. There's potential for them to keep that train, that the saying that people are saying now that China's dead. There's potential for them to keep that up because, frankly, out of the Chinese teams, it's only PSG LGD that looks good. And I'd say while we're on the topic, we can just toss them up to solid contenders. They look really damn good coming into Dream League. They look like they fix a lot of their issues. Just having new has made a lot of impact. And I think the ass kicking they've received in the past few months has shaped them up. And I'm keen to see if that carries through. I think they are definitely up there. So yeah, dark horses for the other teams, but PSG LGD is deserving of solid contenders right now, for sure.
Right, I think PSG LCD, if the prophecy foretold does unravel, they'll come into this. For me, they're the top of solid contenders. I think you have that star player, you have the X factors. They do such crazy things, and as PSG LGD goes, they'll come into Bali. They will stomp this tournament, look like the best Riyadh. They'll follow the pattern and come to TI. They're gonna find a disappointing first place throw or second or third place, and everybody cries again. I've experienced the RTD heartbreak for way too many years, but they are the top of Southern contenders, no doubt about it. I think this is their time to shine. Like, surely, at least give us a TI throw again, you know?
Yeah.
Next team we got on the list is Nouns. I think NA team, it only belongs in one place, John. I have no other argument.
I don't know if I can say Lord help me for Nouns. Ah, they look solid enough in NA. They had pretty good series up against Shopify Rebellion and TSM. So I think they look pretty solid coming in. But it's always hard to say. I think it was good enough for me to call them dark horses. Again, going back to maybe the last time they were on land, Dream League wasn't that hot, but stuff like, yeah, it's been a bit rough. It's fair to say Lord help me, but I would personally put them in dark horse, but that might just be my bias. I think at their best, they are a dark horse. So not to be underestimated, but it's NA. Lord help me with that region. It's just pretty rough.
Yeah, you knocked me on the Bleed Esports. You waited at
Yeah.
the C region, so we're gonna even things out now. The bottom
Fair,
of Lord
fair.
Help me. Maybe Execution beats them there, but they in that category. The next team I think is one of the most interesting picks of this whole bracket, because I feel like, you know, in the meaning of Dark Horse, a team that's unexpected, it could come through and win the whole event. Quest is really, like, fits that description perfectly. Like, they are a true Dark Horse candidate. But I feel like on the tier list, I feel like that's kind of underselling them, right? I feel like this team really has that special X factors with players who play in such an interesting way. I mean, Amar, everybody loves to flame this guy, right? But I really believe one day he's gonna, like, it's gonna click just right, and he's really gonna flex on people. So I really rate this team quite high. But where in the category are we gonna put them officially?
I'd say solid contenders. I have them up
Okay,
there, actually,
straight
all the
up.
way up. I think even I know you said PSG LGD is your top one, but I would say for me it's Quest. I
Okay.
think they're good. I think they're really damn good. Like I've seen them play. I've seen Omar and TA 2000 play in Dream League. The fact that they were subs, it didn't even feel that way. Their individual skill as a whole is just insane. I think ATF really popped off in the MENA qualifiers for Riyadh. There was some sick plays. I think ATF did some weird, some insane play where he dropped his Lincolns as the Morphling stun came in, and then grabbed his Lincolns from the ground when the Morph was coming in. And that kind of individual, minute play, if a player can execute it, you're gonna have issues. And the ATF is ATF and TA 2000 and Noob. They're all up there. The
Okay.
entire team's up there.
All right.
So I think people are sleeping Quest, but I would actually have them in my top three. I think they are that good. They'd
Okay.
go all the way.
All right, I love that. I love that. I'm rooting for this team. I love to root for teams with haters. Like, Ramses is one of my favorite players. You know, ATF, all the OG fanboys hate him now that he's God and stuff. Like, keep the salt, keep the spice, and let's keep it going. And then the Dota is like really even overshines all the drama. Like, this, the Dota is sensational. So I like that pick for Quest. Maybe we'll rearrange at the end to see just exactly what's the best teams. Team Spirit is an interesting pick here because, like, I feel like, again, they still show signs of, like, real life, but I do feel like, you know, maybe Reddit criticisms is right. The mid player is kind of letting them down. Typical, you know, Eastern European throws every now and again. So I don't know really where to gauge this team to, you know, solidify them on the list.
I'd say goodish. I think they've had a much more consistent performance across, just falling flat in a couple of situations. Definitely up there in the top half, but definitely letting their fans down a little bit more. I think there's just some gelling issues for the team that they still haven't fully sorted out how each one wants to play. So I don't know if post Dream League is enough time for them, but hopefully it is. I know a lot of people are still cheering for Team Spirit for sure.
For sure, for sure. I mean, collapse. Still ban Magnus for
Of
Spirit,
course.
guys. Honestly.
Of course.
This next one, I'm super excited to talk about because, as an RTZ fanboy from the speedy gaming days, right? This
Mhm.
team right here, and I in the NBA, whenever I watch analysts speak like this and stuff, I always call it lazy analysis. But honestly, John, this team lacks that dog in them. Like, they just don't. Again, we know how good all these players are. We know how good they are. We've seen them as a team be great. But you have Miracle. Obviously, they've had stand-ins, right? But if your stand-in is
Mhm.
Miracle and he's the best player on the team in a lot of games, right? That's already a question mark. And just in general, like, they're talking like they're on a retirement tour. Oh yeah, we friends. We here to have fun. Water. Y'all should be fucking contenders at the top of this list. That's the expectation fans have had for all these years.
Mhm.
And obviously not a Lord help me team on skill on just pure skill set. You're better than most teams on the list, right? But in practice, they only dark horse for me. They don't even get a goodish. That's my hot take for this one.
Yeah, I think Shopify Rebellion, they're just too inconsistent. They look amazing in their own DPC. They meme around, but yeah, NA lol. But when it comes to actual lands, it's been underwhelming. And I don't know, like not having Abed for the in between tournaments kind of hurts a lot. I don't think they can work on what they want to work on as a team without their full unit. So coming to Bali, I'm not sure. I think Dark Horse is fair. I
I
think.
mean, that's a good point you make, right? Because
Mm,
Boba's whole strat book, 1/5 of it has to throw out of the window. Arbeit Storm Spirit can't be picked, so maybe with him back on his hero, they'll be looking a bit better.
yeah, who
Oh,
knows?
all
Who
right, so the
knows?
next two teams are quite interesting, right? We got Tundra. I think again they've already had a lot of standing situations, and I've never been a fan of this team. I feel like they did stomp TI super hard, and it made things quite boring. You know how a lot of fans felt in TI4 when Newbie just smashed through. But one thing you have to give Tundra, they're one of the most innovative teams. They really pushed the baton forward. They had a good performance in the DPC itself as well. And I have them solid contenders. I don't know where you're sitting with them.
I'd put them down in goodish. I think it's a little bit lackluster right now. I think our last team deserves to be in solid contenders, so I'd rather put Tundra down to goodish. They're still solid. I can see them in top 6, top 8 finish. I don't know about beyond that. I think the other teams are a lot hungrier. Looks like Tundra's just lost a little bit of that fire going
But
forward, like
wasn't
that uniqueness.
33 didn't get to play now in Dream League, right?
Yeah, and he's also probably not going to be able to play in Bali, if I recall, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. Without
Yeah,
33, because in my opinion, he's their best. It looks to me like he's their
yeah,
best player. So if
I'd
he's
agree.
not there, okay, goodish. That's fine.
Yeah,
Okay,
goodish for sure. I think that issue still holds. And for Bet Boom, solid contenders. I think
for
again
sure.
they have the Eastern European curse. They go all the way in Dream League, and the fact that they even went there, I think, is already big. They drag it to 5 games,
Mm-hmm.
just lacking a little bit more, but they are up there in solid contenders on a good day. And I think if this lineup just holds it together, don't tilt out like the other Eastern European teams,
Nine
then
pandas, cough cough.
yeah, and they look a lot more solid. They don't look as tilty as say Nine Pandas at the very least. So I do have them up there for a pretty good finish here.
Okay, so now just reviewing this list, right? I think that the Betboom one is kind of funny. It's our last one because it's just milk toast. It's just straight up analysis. But reviewing this list, I think I agree with you. For the changes I want to make, I think I want to knock EG down to goodish because if you look at who's in the solid containers, these are truly elite teams.
True.
And I don't think
That's fair.
EG make that. I think they could be, high up on this list here with the good teams
Hmm.
because there's a lot of good teams, but they're not elite just yet. They have to prove that still. So I don't know if there's any changes, anything you want to make last minute arguments for you on the list.
I'd move Nouns up in the Lord help me. They're probably better than Execration and Bleed, arguably, perhaps.
Banned.
Perhaps. I'm
You
not
can't
sure.
do that. No NA repping on this podcast. So.
Hey, I think you have to give Nouns some credit. They maybe above Execration,
Okay, they're
but
at the top
maybe
of your
below
top.
Bleed.
Well, I'll give
Yeah,
you
okay.
that. Bleed will be
There you go.
second,
There you go.
even though I'd have
Yeah,
them
yeah.
higher up. That's all right. And now we got. Right. Thank you so much for taking the time, johnxfire. This has been a pleasure. And let's see how smart we are. Obviously, we didn't take groups into account, so this is not all analysis. This is just opinion pieces, not real
Hmm.
analysis, guys. Just throw this video in the bin. But I think we have a solid list. So thanks for your time, man. It's been a good time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And obviously, the last team I want to talk about, which is my dark horse pick to actually come through and win the whole event, Talon Esports, ladies and gentlemen. Makoto 23 Savage God. What? What?
Esports victory!